original 151 Pokemon are some of the most iconic designs in all of gaming. It's what attracts us to this series in the first place. Long before you ever play any one of the games, I'm sure you knew who Mewtwo, Charizard, and Pikachu were. A lot has been said over the original 151. Some people like the designs, others not as much. What I'm here to do today is to count down my top 10 favorites. Not necessarily the best Pokemon or the most important, just the 10 that speak the most to me personally, that I think are really cool. I hope you're along for the ride, and without any further ado, let's get started. We're starting off the list by going to the very end of the Kanto Pokedex. That's right, we're taking a look at number 151, it's Mew. A Pokemon that's pretty important by all accounts. Mew is said to contain the DNA of all Pokemon, making it somewhat of a common ancestor. Yet, despite being so important, its personality is playful and fun and mischievous, often pulling pranks on others if the movies are anything to go by. As far as the games themselves though, we never saw Mew. In Red, Blue, and Yellow, there was no official way to get it, which led to a bunch of theories about searching under a truck or doing this exact sequence of events. The real way to get Mew is through glitches, obviously. Once you got Mew, you found that the Pokemon was surprisingly capable. Not only is its stats great across the board, but its move pool is incredible. It can learn any TM, so you can run it a variety of different ways, whether that's defensive, offensive, as a lead, or something weird. So, whether we're talking about lore, the impact that it had, and its later competitive usage, Mew is a Pokemon that needs to exist, and without it, I feel like the series would be a little bit worse. So it ends up being number 10 on our list. It's wild how we associate different Pokemon with specific roles. Chansey is a good example of this. You might see a simple design, but fans of the anime know Chansey as being a nurse. My number 9 pick, Lapras, also has a specific role. It's the seaworthy travel buddy. Yeah, there are a lot of water Pokemon, in fact some from Generation 1 that are even more popular. Gyarados, Starmie, Blastoise.
Hold up.
Each of these Pokemon could have fit this role, but none do it better than Lapras. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is the design. It's obviously playing off the Loch Ness Monster vibes, but it's a bit more friendly than that. Think Plessy or that one character from Earthbound. It's supposed to be a friend that can also, if need be, shoot out an ice beam and freeze enemies that you come across your path. I like running Ice Beam and Hydro Pump on my specific sets, but you could totally run it bulky given that it has an HP stat of 130. No matter how you run Lapras, it's hard to really deny how iconic it is. Lapras is pretty cool and well worthy of a spot on the list. Gengar is the quintessential ghost Pokemon. It feels like nowadays anytime Game Freak is asked to make a new ghost, they just take something that already exists and make it haunted. Like, ooh, here's a chandelier, let's put a ghost in there, now he's a Pokemon. Or, ooh, here's a sandcastle, let's make him haunted, ooh, now he's a ghost type. I myself would like I don't know, maybe a haunted drink coaster. Have that be a Pokemon, that'd be fun. But if that is an option, I guess I can marvel at how cool Gengar is. That smile, that personality, the fact that he's such a goofster pulling pranks on people. Gengar is just out here to have fun, and man, do people love it. And Game Freak knows you love it, because anytime there's a new competitive feature, Gengar usually headlines for it. Like in Generation 3, for example, we have these abilities that we want to show off. What did Gengar get? One of the most busted abilities, Levitate, meaning he would not be hit by any ground type moves because he's a ghost. Generation 6 comes around. Ooh, Mega Evolutions. Gee, I wonder which Pokemon could get a new form. Oh, hey, Mega Gengar. Hey, what's up, man? Come on in, come on in. As far as competitive stats are concerned, he's pretty simple to use. You run him like a special attacker, and you get things like Shadow Ball and Sledge Bomb and Focus Blast, and the rest figures it out. There's no smart way to run Gengar, but he's fun regardless. Now look, I don't be looking like a Snorlax, I'm well aware, but I do be exhibiting some Snorlax-like behaviors. I be sleeping, for instance, for a long ass time, ungodly hours even. Sometimes even 12 hours straight. And it takes a lot of Pokeflutes to get my ass up. We're talking several phone calls, the alarm going off, country music radio playing. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear it. But if I do wake up, best believe I am not in a pleasant mood whatsoever. Unfortunately, unlike Snorlax, I don't be, sleeping on any major public bridges, or railways, or highways. I'm not that big of a nuisance, but can you really blame the guy? I mean, he weighs like 400 pounds. Dude's gotta sleep somewhere. Alright, look. Snorlax's personality is what got him on this list, but if that was the only factor, he probably wouldn't be this high up. There's the fact that you can run counter on him. For those who haven't played competitive Pokemon, counter is essentially a move that does double what your opponent does to you. So let's say Snorlax gets hit by a super effective Drain Punch, for example. So long as you have a Chople Berry, you can live the hit, take a lot of damage, and then hit back with counter, do twice as much, and end up knocking your opponent out. Like the fact that Snorlax is busted is secretly one of the best things the Pokemon Company has ever done. And no, I will not elaborate. Snorlax belongs on this list. In fact, Snorlax should be on everyone's list. I'm mandating it right now. If Snorlax is not on your list, I'm coming to your house and I'm coming to kick your ass. I can't think of a more universally loved Pokemon than Eevee. No, I'm serious. Like, Pikachu has some fans, Charizard is pretty popular, but you'll typically hear complaints lobbied toward both of them. Eevee, there is not one mean thing to be said toward Eevee. And that's kind of surprising because we're Pokemon fans. We hate this whole fucking series.
No, 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 no.
So if we don't have anything mean to say, something must be up. And well, Eevee's just cute. He's likable. And he happens to have 8 different evolutions. Yeah, the evolutions as they're called. An idea that has never been duplicated as far as Pokemon is concerned. I've always thought Jolteon was the best of the evolutions, and I think that's just because he's the coolest. I love its yellow and white fur that's kind of jaggedy. It sort of reminds me of a Thunderbolt. It just fits the type really well. What also fits the type is his speed stat, 130. That's insane, especially for a Generation 1 Pokemon. I think the last thing that makes Jolteon so good is that it doesn't fall into that typical evolution problem. A complaint has been made that while the evolutions are cool, they're often a diet version of what type it's representing. Flareon's neat, but there are better fire types that fit that role. Jolteon isn't the perfect electric sweeper, there are most certainly other options, but Jolteon also holds its own. It hasn't been outright replaced in my opinion. The point I'm trying to make is that even if Jolteon isn't your favorite evolution, you gotta put some respect on my man's name. He's been out here since the beginning, proven himself worthy, and I think it's time we all see that. Real quick, before we talk about Slowbro, I have to get something off my chest. This is something that's been bothering me for a long time now, and it has to do with the Slowpoke line. So it all starts with the Generation 1 Pokemon named Slowpoke. This is what he looks like. Isn't he cute? I'm going to call him Harold. Say hi to Harold, everybody. Harold got an evolution in Generation 1, aptly titled Slowbro. He is the Pokemon that is on this list. I like him because he is water psychic, he's defensive, and he's a natural progression. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit dumber. Then in Generation 2, they decided to do something that ruined my life. That took this Slowpoke paradise and turned it into a Slowpoke hell. The reason and the problem starts with an evolution. Cool. An evolution to Slowbro? No. An evolution to Slowpoke. Oh, well, wait a minute. Slowpoke already got an evolution. Now there's two, baby! So instead of being a normal Pokemon that has a base form, first stage evolution, and a second stage evolution, now Slowpoke has the choice. Slowpoke can now either evolve into Slowbro or evolve into this new form. Guess what it's called? Guess what the new evolution is called? Slow King. Doesn't that sound like a final form? Doesn't that sound like it has some authority on top of it? Wouldn't it have been real nice to go from Slowpoke to Slowbro to Slow King? Nope. Now they're two different choices, and guess what? They're two completely different Pokemon as well. To be clear, I'm not against a Pokemon having split evolutions. In fact, when it's done well like the Eevee line, I actually think they're pretty cool. The problem here is that it looks like Slowbro should evolve into Slowking. The design goes further along with the same idea, but rather than making it the final evolution, they instead made its stats worse to compensate. Generation 6 comes around, and they introduce Mega Evolutions. We got a new Mega Evolution for Slowbro, and that's actually cool because it solves my problem. Game Freak straightened it out. They said, hey, you can mess with Slowking if you want to, but this is the official canon line that gives you everything you want from the Slowpoke line. It took a Mega to fix it, and you know it's not perfect because you still have to have the item, but it's better than nothing. Finally, my beef was laid to rest, and I could move on with my life. Until they decided to fuck it up in Sword and Shield by giving us Galarian forms. We have Galarian Slowpoke now. Also, here's Galarian Slowbro. Also, here's Galarian Slowking. And guess what? They didn't fix it. Now there's a split. There's another split. There's now a Galarian Slowbro and Slowking that diverge. And I don't know if you're keeping track now, but now we have Slowpoke, Slowbro, Slowking, Galarian Slowpoke, Galarian Slowbro, Galarian Slowking, and Mega Slowbro. That is 7 different Pokemon for one line. They should just made Slowpoke a third form. It would have been so easy. And then you could just had the Mega. And you could even have Galarian forms. But not only do they make the mistake the first time, then they fix it, then they make the mistake a second time for no fucking... I like Slowbro because he's big and dumb. That's it. Moving on. Good news. I have since found peace in my heart. After that Slowpoke debacle, I was feeling kind of angry, you know? I'm supposed to be talking about my top 10 favorite Pokemon, so from here on out, we're only going to be saying good things. Like, that's awesome, and you're awesome. Hey, you watching this video right now? You're awesome, and I appreciate you. I want you to know that, okay? All right, what Pokemon do we have to talk about? What Nidoking? Hey, yo, based? Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Nidoking is on this list because he's a behemoth. Like, there are Pokemon that are of a similar ilk to Nidoking. You know, your Tyrannitars, your Agrons. They've definitely tried to recreate it, but nothing quite comes close to this. And I think that's just because the whole Nidoran line kind of straddles between being sort of rabbit-like on the one hand, and then also just RPG monster. And I'm not against cute Pokemon. You know, I'm all for some cuties. I'm all for Pokemon that are a bit goofy looking. Slowbro's a bit goofy looking, and I still appreciate him as well. But I think Pokemon really finds its stride with some of the more out there and weird and bizarre designs, and Nidoking fits that mold as well. It also helps that this dude is crazy fun to play with in Showdown. I had Earth Power, Sludge Wave, I think like Ice Beam, and it was just really fun. I was surprised like how good, like even special Nidoking is. For a Pokemon that I don't think is talked about as much as it should be, its impact, at least in my head, in my mind, he's one of the all-time Generation 1 greats, and more people should talk about him. One tough aspect of making a Pokemon top 10 list is the decision of whether or not to include legendary Pokemon. I've heard the arguments from both sides, and it makes a ton of sense. On the one hand, if I'm going to list my favorite Kanto Pokemon, then I should have access to all of them. Other people would argue that that's cheating. If you allow legendaries, then they're going to be running all over the top of the list because they're typically the best competitively, have a ton of lore, and obviously have impact. Well, the reasons that Zapdos is on this list for me doesn't have anything to do with all of that and more of my own personal connection with it. I remember seeing him first in the Lugia movie, which was a great introduction, but then being able to capture him in Fire Red was pretty cool. I also just think Zapdos is the best of the legendary birds. If I had to rank them, I would say Moltres is at the bottom, followed by Articuno, and then Zapdos at the top. Either way, Zapdos has enough personal memories for me to adore him, and over the years, that love has gotten stronger, not weaker. Look, I know I said there'd be no more legendaries, but in my defense, Arcanine isn't a legendary. He just was supposed to be. Yeah, according to the anime, at one point in time, Arcanine was considered to be a legendary Pokemon. Would he have replaced Moltres as the only fire legendary, or was he going to work alongside the birds as sort of a guardian? Maybe he just would have been different altogether, who knows? Oh well, we did end up getting a kick-ass regular Pokemon out of it, that also just happens to have a legendary design. I love the fur coming out of his face, the black stripes that contrast super well with his red body. And hey, give credit to Pokemon Legends Arceus, the Hisui variant is also really good, replacing all the white fur with black fur and giving him a Fire Rock type. Competitively, you look at the stats and yeah, Arcanine excels physically. It almost feels like a crime not to run Flare Blitz on it and just watch it do damage. But extreme speed is also a good move to have too, considering you get priority and also do a lot of damage as well. Arcanine makes it far on the list because its design is spectacular, the intrigue behind its development is cool, and competitively it stands out just enough not to be forgotten.
Look! That's Team Rocket's balloon! They must be up to no good! Arcanine! Flamethrower!
You stupid!
We've arrived at the end of the list. I've covered 9 of my favorite Kanto Pokemon, and now only one more remains. My number 1 favorite Kanto Pokemon of all time is, of course, Venusaur. Now look, I actually like the Kanto starters. No disrespect to Blastoise and Charizard. It's just I happen to prefer the Bulbasaur line, and I have all my life. My first Pokemon game that I ever played was Leaf Green, and part of the reason I even bought it was because Venusaur was on the front box. I played that copy for hours and hours on end. It took me a while to beat the Elite Four because I had a bad team consisting of Venusaur, Butterfree, Beedrill, and I think a Nidoking, and I don't even remember what the other Pokemon are. The point is, that Venusaur has been through a lot. And I was so sad when I lost my copy of Leaf Green, thinking I would never be able to have that original team again. Until coming across a yard sale, hey, I found it. It even had my Sharpie written in the back of it, letting it know that it was my copy. I immediately put it into the latest Pokemon game and transferred it all the way from Pokemon Leaf Green to Sword and Shield. And I'm happy to report that he's in Pokemon Sword and Shield in this box right here, over 10 plus years of being on my team, and he's still here after all this time. Part of me wishes I could go back to that day when I was just 6 or 7 years old playing Pokemon for the first time. And while I'll never be able to relive that personally, the memories that I have with Venusaur are the memories I have with Pokemon and childhood as a whole, and I'll cherish them fondly. Look, I said at the beginning of the video that this is not going to be the best Generation 1 Pokemon. If you want that list, you can go somewhere else. But if you wanted to know a little bit about me and why I like the Pokemon I do, hopefully this video told you why.